Okay, so thank you all for coming along this afternoon. The goal of this afternoon is I want to talk about some of the features that are in 365 that you may not realise. It's been quite a few years since we've done a webinar, and I'm hoping this might be the start of doing a few more of these to just try and highlight some of the features that you might find in 365 that you may not realise are there. I know most of you who are here already have using some parts of 365, whether that's email or files, but there's also a lot of other features you can get out of this. So the first thing I just want to point out is we are using Microsoft Teams webinar this afternoon for the first time, making use of this new feature that's available on a lot of the Teams packages now, just to see how it works and see how it all goes and the variation of it. What I'll just highlight first of all, so Microsoft 365 in general is a huge suite of different tools. I equate it to some people like a large toolbox. And this slide, I just quickly highlight, I'm not going to go through everything here, but I just wanted to highlight just the sheer number of features that are in 365. And that doesn't even include the add-ons, the extra features you can bolt into 365. And it doesn't include the amount that Microsoft updates these individual features. I think last year there were several hundred changes to 365 just over the course of the year. So 365 itself covers both a security suite and a productivity suite. And so this afternoon, I'm going to talk through only shortly, one of my points being about security, which I know for those of you who hear me talking at events regularly will probably be pleased to hear. And then I'm going to touch on 3 different areas of productivity type features that might benefit your organization. The goal is to try and get all of this done in 20 minutes, so there'll be some time for questions at the end. Now, if you're not familiar with Teams webinar, it's similar to a lot of other platforms, and you should find across the top of your screen, somewhere around here perhaps, there should be a Q&A button. If you have any questions during the course of this webinar, then please go in there, type in your questions. I've got James opposite me at the moment who'll be responding to some of the questions, and he's also going to be adding a few of the questions on at the end of the presentation using co-authoring. So fingers crossed, everything works as it's supposed to. So we're going to be covering a bit about the security features that are changing at the moment. We're going to be talking a bit about Microsoft Teams and how you can make more use of it, because it's very underutilized in just about every organization that I've seen. We're going to talk a bit about Edge and Bing, which I know a lot of people do not like either of these, but there are some changes coming that actually will make them more useful to businesses. And finally, going to touch on a really quick point about a little tool that's built into Microsoft Word that some people may not be aware of. So moving on, getting started with this, I'm going to talk very briefly about multi-factor authentication. Hopefully, just about all of you have multi-factor authentication on your accounts now. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it can also be called as two-factor authentication, dual-factor authentication, or multi-factor. What it's based on is the principle that to get access to a system, you need to have something that you know, something you have, and something you are. So something you know will be your password, something you have might be your phone, and something you are will be your biometrics, fingerprint, and your eye scan, whatever it might be. Now, that's been around for a while, but some of these changes are happening at the moment to make it more secure, because we've already seen some of the attacks starting to get around the traditional multi-factor authentication. So what's changing? Over the next few months, we'll be contacting people to turn on a few extra options with multi-factor authentication. These are coming out to everybody next year, but Microsoft is gradually phasing this in. So the first change you will notice, if you use the Microsoft Authenticator app, which we do recommend for everybody now, rather than text messages, then when you log in and Microsoft wants to prove that you are who you say you are, they will then push a notification to your phone. That happens, but now it will start showing the rough geographic location of the request. This is based on your IP address, which will depend on where your internet provider has registered you. For some of you, that might be your office, it might be your town, or it might be the sort of county or area that you're in. But the goal of this is to identify if you've got an attacker faking a login request from Nigeria or China or India or somewhere like that, and then you know that it's not you, and you can then reject it. The rejecting button is new for some of you as well, if you're on older settings. And also, you have the option to turn on this 2-digit code, which is to fully protect, supposedly, against phishing. So what happens is on your screen, you get given a code, and then you put that code into your phone, and just it proves that it is you who happens to be on that screen, and there's not some sort of server sitting in between collecting your details. So if you're looking to improve any of that multi-factor authentication, then please do get in touch with us and we can turn those options on. For all of those of you on managed support, we'll be contacting you in due course anyway. So phishing. Phishing is the major attack vector that you will see for most of you out there. Just to confirm for all of you that you may not realise, so phishing is this general approach where someone will take a mailing list and email 100 or 1,000, 10,000, 1 million people with an email trying to elicit information. That could be your login details for 365. It could quite easily be your login details for either PayPal or for Amazon or something like that. And you would have all seen these sorts of emails. Separate to Microsoft 365, although they do have this feature, I just am not a massive fan of it at the moment. But what we're doing is we're offering a third-party solution for phishing training and simulations. So we're taking it beyond just training people, and they're bite-sized videos you can distribute to all of your team. But we're also providing this extra test of creating these fake phishing emails for you, or allowing you to do it yourself, so that you can really test that your staff know what they're doing. I think the old adage goes, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And when it comes to phishing, that's definitely true. But what Microsoft is actually doing at the moment is they are expanding this feature further, and they are expanding the different ways of identifying phishing emails. So you might already see sometimes in Outlook, you get this message bar across the top that says that they cannot verify who a sender is. What we can now do for those people who have Business Premium or the Defender 365 add-on, we can enable additional checks that look for patterns, look for emails that might be a cause of phishing. So first of all, we've got the options to get you don't get this email very often mail tip at the top. But the one that I'm quite pleased about is that they will look at the name of the sender. And if the email address is different for that person than what it was before, it gives you this mail tip. So for example, some of you would have seen the sorts of attacks where someone will go online, LinkedIn, perhaps find the owner of a company, then email in to the business, pretending to be from that person, saying, please, can you pay this money or make a bank transfer, whatever it might be. And they'll be doing it from an email address that isn't their real work email address. And what you'll find is this bar would then appear and say that you do not similar contact you've communicated with before, but it's under a different email address. And so it's not going to block the email, it's just going to highlight it so that you can draw the attention to your staff. Again, you need the Business Premium or you need the add-on to be able to turn on some of those options. And I believe there is more features coming out like that. If you use Outlook Mobile, then these mail tips work as well, and they're rolling out more of them to work on mobile. If you do not currently use Outlook Mobile and use the built-in mail apps in Android or iOS, then I'll strongly suggest considering moving over to Outlook Mobile. Particularly encourage it from your staff because they're going to start getting these warnings that they'd get on their computers as well. So that's all I'm going to say on security for the moment. And I now want to just move on to Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is more than just a video conferencing or instant messaging tool. It came to light for a lot of businesses during the pandemic as an alternative to Zoom. And I will completely admit, it did not do the job of video conferencing as well as Zoom did. Since then, Microsoft has spent a lot of time improving the conferencing, but actually that's only a very small part of what it does. And there is a lot more we can do with Teams. And I suppose it's a lot about how we want to work as businesses going forwards. The traditional approach of having, for example, one central storage location for all our files and everything in there forever kind of has moved on from that. We create a lot of content and it lives a life cycle. It's created, used and destroyed. And so Teams starts to help with that. The file storage approach in Teams is you create a team that you manage without the use of IT. It creates a storage location for you automatically, as well as lots of other features. But it means you totally manage that yourself as a business without having to speak to IT. Now that in turn opens up new opportunities for creating storage. If you, for example, have a single project that you're working on, it could be an event, you can create a team for that, create the storage locations, link it to all the other features of Teams and 365, such as having email, planner boards, to-do lists, all of that feature is built in. You can manage the access and then you can remove access and ultimately delete it and never have to worry about speaking to IT. Now moving on, so when you create a team, it creates the SharePoint location. SharePoint is where we all currently store our files. What you may not realize is that SharePoint does an awful lot more than just creating content, creating a place to store files. It goes further and can actually be your intranet page that can be totally managed by you and your business without having to speak to IT. So what do I mean by intranet pages? So these are website-based pages, and here are a couple of examples, where you can create content. And you can create content around a specific team or process, and you can make this your Wikipedia. It could be a series of forms. So, for example, we're talking to a business at the moment who admittedly has quite a high turnover of staff from the way they work. And what we're doing is we're creating a staff onboarding team for them. And then that team is going to be specifically set up to have content. So it'll be a message from the CEO of the business. It's going to be links to company policies, to company news, to important events. It's going to have links to the common systems that they use, to the training videos. All of that then will be encompassed in one website, basically, that's built in SharePoint, that's manageable by the users. And we're linking that back to Teams. So when they go into the team in Teams, poor choice of words, but that unfortunately that's what it's called, the team in Teams, there'll be a tab there which will take them straight to the web page. So the users, the day-to-day users, won't necessarily need to know anything about SharePoint. To them, it'll just be a web page and they can access it. And in fact, in this instance, the client is also exploring the options of making this page accessible to the employees before they start in the business. So making it as an option that they can get access only to this page, nothing else, as soon as they've accepted their job offer, so they can start feeling part of the team. Obviously, you can take this further, and we're seeing people starting to look at creating these pages for the individual teams in their organization. Things like operations might be links to particular websites. One client we're working with is doing a page for maintenance. So there will be accounts, there'll be a page on there for procedures of how they maintain the building, the checks they need to do. There'll be a form on there for managing that process so people can complete it each day, really sort of drawing everything together. The next thing to touch on is Teams phone systems. Microsoft Teams for a while has had different communications options, conferencing and messaging, but now they've opened up into doing voice calls to the standard phone network. It is an add-on, but it is very competitively priced, and you've already got the software on your computer. All that happens is when you have the Teams phone system, it brings up a little dial pad on the screen that you can call from. If you don't want to use the computer to make your calls, then you can use your mobile if you've got Teams installed, and you can also have a desktop phone if you wish. Now, the advantages of this is that staff will already have these apps available. They might already have headsets. So why not make use of the software you've already got and just add on and make the calls? It has all the features that you might expect, like call queues, auto attendance, direct dials if you want them. It all happens to be in one place. Next, you can link in with other apps. So Teams can be your central repository for accessing information of different places. You can link in your apps like Power Automate, which I plan to do more talks about in the future. Likewise with Planner, so each team can have a planner board or multiple planner boards if you're planning an event, for example. You can also link in for things like Power BI. For those who don't know, Power BI is a business intelligence platform. You have certain features available to you within your current licenses, and Microsoft are adding on more options and more add-ons to get more features out of Power BI. But it's basically about taking your data from different sources and pulling it directly into one location. So for example, if you work potentially in a marketing business, you could be pulling in statistics from clients, Google Analytics, onto a Power BI dashboard, pulling in data from a CRM system as well, and then showing that on a single page inside the team that relates to that client, for example. We already get Google Analytics to send a message directly into our marketing team every Friday afternoon, I think it is, with the statistics for the previous week. And so you can start integrating these apps further. Each team has an email address and a link, which makes it very easy to start pulling in all this other information into one location. The next thing I wanted to talk about briefly was Edge and Bing. I know the first version of Microsoft Edge was really awful, and Bing has never been particularly successful as a search engine. However, Microsoft Edge, they rebuilt from scratch a couple of years ago. And rather than trying to build their own engine directly from all the way from the ground up, they brought in Chromium, which is the same base that Chrome uses. So actually Edge is Chrome in the way it displays web pages. So it should work with almost all websites. But it also will go a step further because on top of that, Microsoft have built in additional options for security. And that's why it makes it a really important tool for businesses. The default page that comes up for a lot of people will be the Microsoft 365 feed. And actually, I think it's a useful tool for a lot of people working in this modern day of working in the browser. It gives you a quick page, and you can see on this screen at the moment, it gives you a banner down the side, looking at the documents you've used, anything it thinks you might be useful, changes that have been happening to documents in the organization that you've also been working on. It lists your teams or your SharePoint sites that you're working with. It gives you your to-do list, and it gives you your calendar, and it lists all of your recent documents in one place. It really is a quick and easy way of accessing this information. Microsoft Bing, again, wasn't a great search engine, but over the next few years, we're going to see some big changes, and it wouldn't surprise me to see more people using Bing in the future. What we've found is that Microsoft will now allow Bing to search your 365. Now, no panics, it's not publicly available for all of your data, but it does mean that if you are signed into 365, you can then search your content on SharePoint, Teams, on your emails, whatever it might be, but in one place like you would a normal search engine. And that makes it a really useful tool for finding company information. What you can also do is start creating your own custom answers to specific questions. So what you'll see on this screen here right now is I've got this little black box with our logo on. When I search for a question called "When do I get paid?", I've created this information card, which basically tells me the answer. That can be linked to all sorts of different data, web pages, pictures, whatever it might be. And that can then be set up by you without having to involve IT. You just need access to a specific page. Finally, I'm going to talk about AI. this part of the presentation we've already changed twice because things keep changing. And in fact, yesterday it changed again. I was going to say that AI is coming and it will be in our browsers soon. What I'm now going to say is AI is here and it's in our browsers. So the latest Microsoft Edge update brings in this new chat button at the top, this blue Bing button. When you open that up, it brings a side panel and that links into the Microsoft Bing chat API. It makes it very easy for you to reference content that's on the page, ask it to abbreviate things or generate blog posts or articles or summaries. There's all sorts of uses. It's very early days and you still have to register even when you get the button to be able to have access to it. But it's coming and it's going to make more of an impact on businesses than I think any of us realise. In the next year, or over the next few months, I'll do a whole other talk on this and how we can use it in our businesses. So I'm running slightly behind, so I'll go through this tip that we found. So for those of us who work with Word and PowerPoint potentially, sometimes you need to convert from Word to PowerPoint, and Microsoft have produced this little tool that exists at the moment only in Word Online, but actually is going to be coming to more products, coming to the desktop one in the future, and there is other tools they're adding all the time. So what this does, if you take a Word document, open it in Word Online, you then go to the File menu and you go to Export, and there's a button that says to export to PowerPoint. It will then ask you for what sort of style that you want, and don't worry, you can change all this later, but you choose a style. Then it opens up, it'll put all the content in there. It will pick pictures it believes are appropriate using AI, and this will get better over time. But then you can start customizing this for how you want to do things and open it in PowerPoint on your computer or however you normally work on it. So there you go. So that's the content that I wanted to go through. I'm hoping that some of you found some of that useful. And I know there have been some few questions, and I know James has been replying to a few based on what I can see behind my screen. James has also used the co-authoring tools in OneDrive and SharePoint to better add in a couple of questions that have come through, and we're just going to move through to those now. Hopefully it's all working. Okay, first question was how can we get some more Microsoft 365 training for your staff? Okay, that's a good question, and it's one that I do get quite a bit when I am speaking to clients. In my opinion, I think it could be a false economy to train your staff on every single Microsoft feature because there are just too many of them. What I think you want to do is actually train them on how to use the tools for the work they do. Train a few people up on the broader sense of the tools and perhaps work with us or find resources and look at how you can use them, because sometimes it's a case of changing the process, use the tools in the best way. Then once you've got that, create your training materials for your team, put them into SharePoint, link them to Teams, and then it all makes it nice and straightforward. And actually, over the next few months, we're going to be creating some webinar series on how to use Word and Outlook and Teams more efficiently. There are 3 products that I notice a lot of misuse and a lot of time people are losing because they don't know how to use them properly. So we're creating these little, what should we say, little series of webinars, 5 or 6 people join for 20 minutes a week with one of the team, and we'll just go through different ways you can use it, explore that, and then hopefully you can implement some of that into your business. We found that's probably going to be more reliable than giving a massive long tutorial that then people forget. I'm now getting a warning that I need to move on a little bit. I was run out of time. Question 2, where can we find more information? How do we know if we're getting the most of 365? If you're an administrator on your account, Microsoft will provide you a message, what's called the Message Center, which tells you the features and changes that are coming. When it comes to how do you know if you're getting the most of 365, I think it's actually better for a lot of people to engage with us or other partners, but engage with us to talk through how they work and talk through the processes and what's involved in 365. I and my team spend a lot of time researching and keeping up to date with the changes that are happening. And even then, they can change overnight and the use of them change overnight. So even if you've tried something in the past, I genuinely think it's worth coming back to it every few years and trying it again, because there's these tools that you're paying for these tools. Unfortunately, they're going to get more expensive because inflation and everything else. But actually, some of these other tools people are using, these smaller companies can also increase their prices quite considerably, and we don't know their longevity and how long they'll be around for. So just finishing off, thank you all for coming. I really hope that you've at least found something of some use in this. If you haven't, then please do come back again, because we're going to be doing these more often, and I'm going to be looking at different areas each time. I had thought that I knew what I was going to talk about in the next one, but I might be changing my mind based on some of these AI features coming out soon. So for more information, check out our website, keep an eye out for future webinars, particularly those individual training ones you'll be getting details for, and our newsletter. And thank you very much for coming.